Hi there, I'm nicodehaan, and welcome to Living a Primal Lifestyle, where we explore a return to a more balanced and natural wild world.
Recover our natural health and regain our rights and freedoms. And I'm Ellen Dehaan.
It's a beautiful day in Durango, Colorado. Right now, it is about 40 degrees.
Yep.
Yeah, went for a walk this morning. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Sun is shining. Feels like 60 degrees already.
Yeah. Forsythia bush is bursting with yellow flowers.
Yeah, things are getting green. It's beautiful.
Spring is coming.
Yeah, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the follow button. Hit the like button. Do all that kind of stuff. And we also post on Odysee YouTube, of course. And if you hit the link below the show notes, you can maximize your nutrition from Mother Earth Labs. And these are products that we use to supplement our diet. So check that link out. And if you have any questions or comments, you can reach me at nicodehaan@me.com or leave a comment in Facebook or one of the other platforms like YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's it.
And
So
just to say that you scour the internet each week.
Yeah, we look at mainstream news stories about anti-aging, natural health, climate, history, as well as our freedom, and we do our own analysis. So all the topics that we're going to discuss today are in the show notes listed below. In the description, if you have any comments or questions, like I said, you can reach me pretty easily.
Well, just to follow up on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes we really find nothing. Sometimes
seems like
last week you looked and just nothing was resonating with us, so we skipped the show. And
we were busy too, so
yeah. Sometimes so.
We do it when we can.
Yeah, when we want to.
So today we're going to be talking about additives and food dyes and things like that. And
all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Little potpourri.
Yeah, the first article is Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to announce ban on artificial food dyes.
Now we know we announced a few shows back about the red dye being taken off the market.
Yeah.
It had already been taken out of certain things, but it was now going to be banned, but not until like 2027 or something crazy like that.
Well, he wants to do it before he leaves.
Now this is all artificial food dyes.
Well, I don't know if it's all of them or not, but let's read the article here. Mm-hmm. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will be delivering on a campaign promise to ban artificial food dyes by announcing the phasing out of 8 petroleum-based synthetic dyes in the nation's food supply.
And he told CBS News earlier this month that during a closed-door meeting with food company CEOs, he demanded that artificial food dyes would, quote, all have to be out within 2 years, end quote.
Yeah, many processed foods such as candies, snack foods, margarine, soft drinks, jams, and pudding contain artificial dyes such as the F, D, and C blue
blues number 1 and 2,
green number 3, and red number 3 and 40, and yellow.
It doesn't show the numbers.
So the Consumer Brand Association, which represents companies that manufacture food, beverages, household products, sent a letter to its members with a readout of Kennedy's meeting during a March 12th meeting with the food industry CEOs.
And the letter, which was shared on Background with USA Today, said it was an urgent priority for the administration to remove certain artificial colors from the food supply, and that he wanted it done before he leaves the office.
Yeah.
So there's been the decision was greeted with a lot of enthusiasm by quite a number of people.
I think on both sides of the aisle, really.
Yeah. Well, also outside of government, the food activists who've been trying to get this taken care of for quite a long time. So.
And why wouldn't you want this stuff out? It's petroleum-based stuff.
Why do you need?
Well, if you look at the food that I listed, this is nothing that we eat at all. Maybe jams. We eat some preserves now.
Yeah, but we eat jams, but we eat them from the health food store, so there's nothing in them but fruit.
Hopefully that's the case. These are not foods that are going to make you healthy, that's for sure, in the first place. And the only reason the dyes are in there to enhance the coloring and maybe some of the flavorings even some of those artificial
Well,
flavorings that
as
are in
we,
there.
yeah,
They're not good food.
well,
They're-
it's for your visual.
yeah.
Somebody did a study and said people are more attracted to yellow food or green food or whatever it might be.
Well, if you look,
And,
remember we had a picture a few months back of the cereal. I think it was Fruit Loops, and the Fruit Loops that were in Canada and in Europe
yeah,
were completely different colors than the real bright colors that were in the United States. So,
yeah,
and it's done for presentation. It's done so you can
make it more
have the
appealing,
child
more
want
appealing.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the article talks about the uh, additives in the junk food and the of course red dye number 3 is found in candy, desserts, and some medications, like cherry cough syrup or whatever,
Right. Especially
and
children's medications.
exactly. So that one, as we said, is banned as of January 15th, 2027.
Yep.
That's still more than a year and a half away.
Yeah.
And when it was announced, it was almost 2 years away. So,
well, next article is chemicals that link to breast cancer leach into our food. The study shows, and this comes from CNN.
And we've been talking for a long time about the fact that there's so much stuff in the environment.
Yeah, well, there's nearly 200 chemicals connected to breast cancers that are used in the making of food packaging and plastic tableware, and dozens of these carcinogens can migrate. Whatever can migrate into the human body. A new study found.
So, according to Jane Monk, who is the managing director and chief scientific officer at the Food Packaging Forum, which is a not-for-profit foundation based in Zurich, Switzerland, says, and I quote, "There is strong evidence that 76 known or potential breast carcinogens from food contact materials recently purchased all over the world can be found in people."
Ooh. Yeah, of the recently detected chemicals in food packaging, 40 are already classified as dangerous by regulatory agencies around the world, according to the study.
Quote, then Jenny Kay, who's a research scientist at Silent Spring Institute, which is a research organization that focuses on the link between chemicals, women's health, and breast cancer, said, quote, "So many of these chemicals have already been classified as human health hazards, yet they're still allowed to be used in food contact materials, thus allowing them to migrate into the food we eat."
Yeah, rates of an early onset breast cancer in women under 50 are increasing, and experts say the trend cannot be explained by genetics alone.
So now again, we see the Consumer Brands Association, the same one that was involved in the colors, the food dyes. They told CNN that its members adhere to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration evidence-based safety standards. And Sarah Gallo, who is the association's senior vice president of product policy and federal affairs, said, quote, "Packaging exists to protect and keep the food safe for consumption."
Yeah, she also said that the FDA reviews and approves food contact substances through their science and risk-based systems before they go to market. The agency's post-market review also provides continuous safety analysis and regulation of the approved substances.
And I think that what we have to look at in that statement is risk-based. And it's like they balance what's an acceptable risk. Well, there's no acceptable risk as far as I'm concerned. If you know that something can cause cancer, then why would you allow it?
Yeah,
Sure.
Another quote here from Kay says that the fact that so many potential breast carcinogens are present in food packaging and can migrate into our food is just one example of how many chemicals we are unwittingly exposed to every single day.
And she was a co-author of the 2024 study.
Yeah, many of the mammary carcinogens are hormone disruptors too, and many of the chemicals on the list can damage DNA, she said.
Consumers should not have to keep track of all the scientific literature on what chemicals to avoid. It should be on regulators to recognize the danger and take action.
Yeah, a new study published Tuesday in the Journal of Frontiers in Toxicology compared the Silent Spring database of known carcinogens for breast cancer with the database on food contact chemicals monitored in humans, or FCC, human,
Human.
which is a nomenclature, no doubt.
Yeah, right.
That's a nomenclature created by the Food Packaging Forum, and it's a list of food contact chemicals that have been detected in human breast milk, blood, urine, and tissues as well.
Yes, I mean that means that you're. I mean, what? Why is it okay to keep on wrapping this stuff around the food when it's been found to immediately affect the human body?
Well, they found that a lot of these chemicals stop the penetration of other things
well, they
from
keep
the outside.
right.
So they're kind of a barrier, but them leaching into the food
I know, it's
themselves the barrier is causing the problem.
Is it better to have a little microbe in there, or is it better to have a carcinogen that has definitely been shown to pervade the human body?
That's a really good point, Ellen, because one of the things that we've noticed is that when these carcinogens are heated, they're more activated. Whereas some of the microbes, when we heat them, they die.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. The study, there were a related article on forever chemicals. You know, we talked a lot about the forever chemicals. So the study found such chemicals as benzene, which is a known carcinogen connected to breast cancers in people, and then other carcinogens, including one linked to bladder cancer, breast cancer,
other cancers,
and other cancers, and
these chemicals are actually dyes that are used to color plastic and paper. So they're actually dyeing the wrappings, so maybe to make it more attractive when you get the food.
So draw your eye, and and so again, the woman who was part of this, Kay, who was one of the authors of the paper, said dyes can be used in plastics, paper, cardboard, and the like, and can have some pretty toxic properties. Plastics are not the only culprit.
Yeah, in fact, while the study found most of the exposure to carcinogens come from plastic used in food packaging, 89 suspected carcinogens were found in paper. Carcinogens. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. What were we thinking? We're found in paper and cardboard containers. Also,
it's interesting because the restaurants that we go to where we get a takeaway, you notice that the cardboard is just the natural color of the paper. Yep. It's not some bright color. It's not some magic thing.
Yeah, it says here a number of the chemicals found in the study were biphenyls.
Bisphenols.
Sorry?
Bisphenols.
And
phthalates, etc. It's all those PUFAs, PFAs.
Yeah, that's what they are. Worrisome chemicals that have been linked to many health concerns. They're often called forever chemicals because they do not break down in the environment, and therefore they don't break down in your food, right?
Or in your stomach.
Right, or in your stomach.
But they remain in your body. And PUFAs are used in food packaging to prevent grease and water from soaking through food wrappers and beverage cups. PUFAs can also be found in the ink used to print the logos and instructions on food containers.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you get some clothing and you spray the chemical on it to prevent things from, moisture from penetrating the fabric. Same kind of thing.
Waterproofing.
Right? Waterproofing. There you go.
Yeah, and it says chemicals in the PUFA family are linked to high cholesterol, cancer, and various chronic diseases, as well as linked to a limited antibody response to vaccines in both adults and children. Phthalates have been linked to childhood obesity, asthma, cardiovascular issues, cancer, and premature death in people ages 55 to 64. And this bisphenol, or BPA, is an endocrine disruptor that has been linked to fetal abnormalities, low birth weight, and brain and behavior disorders in infants and children. And in adults, it's been linked to the development of diabetes, heart disease, erectile dysfunction, cancer, and a 49% higher risk of early death within 10 years. Whatever that
Boy, it says here 2 steps to take to reduce exposure: avoid burning or charring foods, as is the muscle meat
Like
of.
when you barbecue.
Yeah, I mean, if their chemicals are leaking into it, and these are petroleum-based chemicals, then
Yes.
naturally they would be uh,
As you
exposed
mentioned,
to heat. They get worse,
they get
probably.
worse. Yeah.
Whereas
Mhm.
just burning meat by itself with none of that stuff in there, I don't think has any problems. Uh, it's basically like a charcoal that comes from coconut rinds, or
Yeah. Well,
so
toward
it's
the
the
end,
chemicals that are in the food that cause the problem with the.
well, the chemicals that have leached into the food,
Exactly.
because the food itself doesn't have anything that's going to cause you cancer.
Not if you char.
But not if it's
No, because we've been,
organic and
our humans have been putting food on fire for thousands and thousands of years.
yeah, but the food was whole.
Yeah,
It was
it didn't have the
locally
chemicals in it.
sourced.
Exactly. I
It
think
was
that's.
organic. It was free range. It was all those good things. So at the end of the article, it says choose organic produce, meat and dairy over conventional when you can. And even though there may be some heavy metals, the organic food is at least exposed to fewer pesticides. Says don't use plastic containers. Store and microwave all foods in glass rather than plastic. Don't use nonstick pans for cooking, and replace plastic bottles with glass or stainless steel.
Yeah, we don't even use the microwave at all. We do have
No.
one, but I don't think we've used it in
I think we used it once. We
like
do
20
have
years ago
stuff.
or something.
Well, we do have some little packets of or pillowy type things that can be heated up, like for your hands, for your neck.
Oh, nothing to hide. They just.
No,
Yeah,
we don't eat it.
Yeah,
we
right.
might warm it up that way.
Okay, so let's go on. The next article we have is called "Cleaning Your Teeth Can Help You Live Longer and Meet Your Oral
Meet your
Microbiome."
micro.
Tongue twister for me, for sure.
Okay.
So it says, you may know that caring for bugs in your gut or gut microbiome can help you live longer, but a different collection of microorganisms is getting an attention for its health credentials.
Yeah, researchers have known for decades that people with problems like gum disease, cavities, missing teeth are more likely to experience strokes and develop chronic conditions, including cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, obesity, rheumatoid arthritis, and Alzheimer's.
Pretty much what everybody's
Of
dying
course, in
right?
parentheses, we would put because of what they eat.
Well, I mean, obviously these
Which causes these
the
problems.
microbiome is influenced by the food.
Yeah, but I mean, they're saying they're blaming your teeth for diabetes and obesity, when in fact it's all connected. It's all part of the cycle, but it starts with the food.
Yeah, and mainly I think the sugar, starches, and high carbohydrates.
Oh yeah, the stuff that we talk about.
Food.
Yeah, the empty calories and the high fats and so on.
Well, it says here she says I've been in business for 50 years, says Judith Jones, who's a professor who researches oral disease at the University of Detroit Mercy School of Dentistry. She says the potential reasons for this are messy. It's not a simple science.
First she said centenarians have more teeth than the people who don't live that long.
Yeah.
Now, a centenarian is a person who lives to 100 or more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she said the potential reasons for these is just not that. It's just not a matter of this and that.
Yeah, it's growing research suggests that microbes that live in the mouth, like oral microbiome, can play a larger role in the health than we have previously thought. And we've been going along with this pretty much too. What she mentions down here is that just like the gut, the mouth microbiome houses a collection of good and bad microorganisms, but it functions differently than the gut.
Than the gut microbiome. Yeah, a healthy gut microbiome has a diverse range of inhabitants, and these are linked to a variety of physical and mental health benefits, from a stronger immune system and better mood to a lower risk of diseases. And brushing and flossing hits the reset button and prevents harmful microbes from colonizing and maturing.
Yeah, and the list of the risk of diseases are like type 2 diabetes, colon cancer, things like that. Yeah, it's one of the biggest problems we have for sure.
Because if there's microbes in your mouth, they have access to like bleeding gums, that kind of thing. The microbes can access your entire circulatory system through the
Once a day,
mouth
they can get in the
once they
blood.
get in the blood.
Yeah.
So
Once-
the point was that they can cause damage and inflammation, and there was a study. One study showed that gum disease causing bacteria was found in the brains of people with Alzheimer's, the tumors of colon cancer patients, and in heart tissue when people had cardiovascular disease. Now, you wouldn't think that there'd be something from gum disease in there.
Yeah, and it also says at the top here, the more mature species of microbes are what can cause infections that break down the barrier between the gums and the blood. So it says here, evidence suggests that there is a strong link between good oral hygiene and the lower risk of cardiovascular disease, with one study suggesting flossing only weekly, appears to lower the risk of
ischemic stroke.
Ischemic, I would say, but that's cool, by over a fifth. Similarly, a review of studies into oral health and chronic disease published in 2019 found the most frequently reported correlation was between periodontal disease and cardiovascular disease.
Yeah. Well, I think there was some interesting stuff in this article.
Yeah.
There was there's one researcher who started her career as a dental hygienist, said that good oral hygiene includes and involves brushing your teeth thoroughly at least once a day, and most dentists recommend twice a day. And it is also important to floss daily because a toothbrush can't reach the spot in between the teeth and the gums, which is known as the periodontal pocket, where the disease occurs. Flossing helps you keep your teeth.
Yeah, I think so too.
But we use Proxy brushes.
Yeah, those Proxy brushes, I like it a lot better than the
floss.
The flossing.
Well, first of all, they don't shred in your teeth when you end up with these stupid threads in your mouth that you can't get out.
Yeah, some of them are hard to reach, and these little things just go between, and they have little
you can get
plastic things on them.
You can get different
lengths and
lengths. So that depending on how close together your teeth are or how far apart they are.
Yeah.
And it really does, the little brush does a good job of removing plaque in between your teeth.
Yeah, since I started using them rather than the dental floss, I've noticed the smaller ones are working better. I started with the wider ones, and as my my gums got healthier, there's less room, so you use the thinner ones. Yeah. But also another thing that we started using, and this is the next article, xylitol.
Yeah, and xylitol is a sugar substitute. Well, it's a quote unquote sugar
alcohol.
Sugar, except it's not alcohol.
Yeah, added sugar may be the single most unhealthy ingredient in the modern diet.
Yeah, and so it's a sugar substitute, but it is not artificial. And it says it's categorized as a sugar alcohol. And sugar alcohols combine the traits of sugar molecules and alcohol molecules, which then allows them to stimulate the taste receptors for sweetness on your tongue.
Yeah, the structure allows them to stimulate the taste receptors. That's important because it really does taste a lot like normal sugar. Maybe it's not quite as sweet, but it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Anyway, it's found in small amounts in many fruits and vegetables. And so it's considered a natural product. And humans even produce small quantities of it during normal metabolism.
It's a common ingredient in sugar-free chewing gums, candies, mints, diabetes-friendly foods, and oral care products. Yeah, one of the products that we use is xylitol toothpaste.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, I mean, well, let's go through and talk about just.
Well, one of the things I noticed immediately is how smooth the teeth are.
It feels like you just came out of a cleaning at the dentist every single day.
Yeah. So
every time you brush. Yeah. I mean, the inside of your teeth are just completely smooth when you run your tongue over them, and it's a wonderful thing. So it's and it doesn't have. It's processed from trees like the birch. And even though the sugar alcohols are technically carbohydrates, most of them do not rise blood sugar levels, and so they don't count as net carbs.
Yeah, they have less calories too.
And in fact, xylitol is one of those things that does not affect your blood sugar.
Right.
So
that's the important part there.
Yeah, and you don't want to. We don't eat it, you know.
No, we have. Well, let me put us on the screen here. Just to make. Where's my cursor? There it is. We started using first of all the toothpaste.
Yeah, xylitol.
And the reason a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago, when we first moved here, I had cavity, and they recommended that I have what do you call it? When they take the thing out.
As soon as you said that, it went out of my head.
A root canal.
Root canal.
Yeah, so they want to take the root out. And I said, well, let me do some research on my own. It wasn't really bothering me that bad. And then it really started bothering me. So I started using xylitol toothpaste, but I also...
we started using xylitol as a swish in your mouth.
Yeah, so instead of, I used to use the oil pulling, and I used to use an oil, either coconut oil or sesame oil. And that does a very similar thing, except it doesn't have the chemicals of the sugar,
right?
The xylitol in it. So I switched to xylitol. I'm doing that in the morning and usually sometime during the day.
Or after, in the evening, after
dinner, yeah. And it was about like 15 minutes, switch it around and spit it out. I also started using the gum, and I use that maybe once a day.
It's a xylitol chewing gum, and you only chew it for 10 minutes.
Yeah, something like that, 5 or 10 minutes.
And then you spit it
And they also have these mints that dissolve in your mouth.
Which are wonderful.
Yeah. So we have the sugar, we have the mints, and we have the gum. And we have the toothpaste.
Well, when you say the sugar, we have the xylitol granules.
Yeah, that's what I meant. The sugar.
Yeah.
So I started using it, and I went back to the dentist maybe 3 months later. And he said, "Well," he says, "looks like it's still bothering you. There's a little pus down there." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, next year when I come, if it's still bothering me, we'll talk about doing the procedure you recommend." And that was last October.
Tell him that, share that. Before that, you had gone with the dentist recommendation, had the tooth pulled.
No, I had the root canal
first.
Root canal. And then a couple of years later, he's...
Wait.
Well,
but then had a dry socket.
What happened was that I went back to the dentist. He says, "Well, we have to pull the tooth because it's still infected." So I said, "Well, what's the use of having the root canal if you're going to pull the tooth?" He says, "Well, root canals normally only last 3 years."
What?
So, and then the expense of all that stuff.
Oh,
we're pulling.
And then you had a dry socket on top of it.
Yeah. Anyway, it's all healed, and so I kept using it pretty religiously every day for sure. And I haven't had any pain or swelling or anything like that. It seemed like when I first started, it would come back like once a month, and then I would probe it and put more xylitol in there. And basically, what the articles are saying is that it feeds the good bacteria, but it also feeds the bad bacteria, but the bad bacteria cannot live on it.
Well, let's look at the article here. Many dentists recommend using xylitol-sweetened chewing gum. Studies have determined that xylitol boosts dental health and helps prevent tooth decay. One of the leading risk factors for tooth decay is an oral bacteria called Streptococcus mutans. This is the bacteria most responsible for plaque. Some plaque on the teeth is normal, but excess plaque encourages your immune system to attack the bacteria in it, which then leads to inflammatory gum diseases like gingivitis.
Yeah, the oral bacteria feed on glucose from food, but they do not use xylitol. Cannot. Yes.
Cannot.
As such, replacing sugar with xylitol reduces the available fuel for the harmful bacteria.
And these bacteria cannot use xylitol for fuel, but they still ingest it. And after they absorb it, they can't take up any glucose, which means their energy-producing pathway is clogged and they die.
Yeah, in other words, when you chew gum or with xylitol or use it as a sweetener, the harmful bacteria in your mouth starves to death.
I love that.
Yeah, and
Just,
then remember, this all goes into your gut bacteria and really does the same thing. So people have been using this for a long time and using it pretty actively, like I have not only had their teeth uh, kind of the gums kind of rebuild themselves, which
yeah,
at 80 years old,
yeah,
I mean,
it
I'm
helps with
pretty happy. Also, you'll find that you're going to be less susceptible to colds and flus
yeah,
and other things.
coming through your nose and your mouth.
Yeah, in fact, we were listening to a podcast by Sam Bailey,
Dr. Sam,
Dr. Sam Bailey, and she was talking
Samantha
about
Bailey
yeah,
from New Zealand.
yeah, and her her husband have done many different books and things on viruses and how viruses really don't exist. At least they're not alive. And what's causing most of the problems in people's health? They list 40 things, and some of the things are like: Are you in the sun enough? Are you exposed to?
Are you getting enough sleep?
Yeah.
Are you exercising?
Are you consuming the right kinds of food? What kind of packaging do you have, like we talked about? And are you living in an area where there's chemicals around?
Environmental
Drinking water,
toxicity.
and all these things may sound like we're kind of nitpicking, but I think what the deal is, and this is what we've been finding, is that these things add up. So yeah, one thing, your body probably responds pretty healthy towards it and can manage it. But now if you have 20 of or 30 of these insults coming at you every single day,
cumulative.
yeah, your body's going to be breaking down. And what we've said in the past too, you're always working to get rid of this stuff, and you're never working on your whole
on the repair,
on the repairs that your body has inflicted on itself. And all these other things.
Needs.
Yeah, yeah. So your body needs to be running in prime fashion, and to do that, you can't have
the machine.
you can't have these toxins entering your body, and you can't have this bacteria living in there because your body is just can't keep up, and that's most of the time what's happening. Your body just can't keep up.
Right, and things start breaking down. And
yeah, there's one extra thing that piles on. Maybe it's just stress. Maybe you just haven't had enough sleep, and that one thing breaks the camel's back, so to speak.
Yeah, the straw.
That's kind of what we're finding out.
Yeah, just to wind up the article, toward the end of the article, it talks about that there have been some studies that have linked xylitol to increase production of collagen. And collagen is something that it's a very abundant protein in your body. It's found in the skin and connective tissues, helps keep your skin looking young, helps prevent wrinkles and so on. And so it's, as it says, which may help counteract the effects of aging on your skin. It's also been shown to have some connection to help protect against osteoporosis, meaning your bones dissolving as you get older, and it did increase bone volume and bone mineral content in some studies.
Yeah, xylitol also feeds the friendly bacteria in your gut, acting as a soluble fiber and improving your digestive health. In humans, xylitol is absorbed slowly and has no measurable effect on insulin production.
Now, they do again remind you that you don't want your dog to get a hold of the xylitol in any way.
Yeah, they don't do well.
In fact, it can be fatal.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Salmon are being exposed to our anti-anxiety medication, and it's making them take more risks. Many, just before we talk about this article, for years I've been thinking about, even when I rinse out the mixer from the amino acids, I think, I wonder what that's doing to everything in the sewer system, the amino acids,
and the vitamins and things that we take.
Yeah. I mean, well, that stuff doesn't go through a hole, but it's people flushing antibiotics down the toilet and that kind of thing. And
I think I've even seen people do. I mean, in the sewer system, everything goes in there. So any kind of cleaning, abrasive products. Excuse me, you're cleaning your driveway with something, and it goes into the
aquifer.
In the aquifer, sure. And I'm wondering, when I see this article, Atlantic salmon exposed to common anti-anxiety drugs migrate faster.
Once we start
Well, I'm
fooling
wondering what
around-
happens to us too.
well,
We're
risk.
moving around a lot.
It says that these drugs, well, okay, humans take a lot of medication. Small doses of those drugs, including antibiotics, antidepressants, birth control, and more, find their way in the environment through wastewater, even if it's treated. Nearly 1,000 different pharmaceuticals have been detected in waterways all over the world, even in Antarctica.
Now, a new study sheds light on how these drugs affect wildlife behavior.
So if you're, it's just very scary to think, and they can't get them out there. It just kind of mixes with the water, for example, and
I'm wondering how much they can get out and they can't get out. I mean,
right,
we have these filters that
we
yeah,
got multiple filters.
would not recommend drinking waters from a fountain anymore these days
No.
because they've treated it, but then you also have the fluoridation, which we don't agree with, right? So let's go on here. So pharmaceutical pollution or chemical pollution in general is really this invisible agent of global change, says Jack Brand, who's the study's leading author and environmental researcher at the Swedish University of Agricultural Studies.
And it's probably posing a greater risk than at least what the public acknowledges. This is potentially significant threat to our aquatic wildlife. You start at the bottom, the water,
the frogs,
the frogs,
the tadpoles. To better understand the risk, Brand and his teams gave young Atlantic salmon the drug clobazam, which is a common anti-anxiety and sleep medication in doses that might mirror what they're exposed to in the wild. The team used tracking tags to monitor how the medication affected the fish's 17-mile migration from the Dal River in Sweden to the Baltic Sea.
The salmon were given clobazam were more likely to reach the sea than the untreated fish. They also quickly passed through two major hydropower dams that often slow the other fish down. New findings were just published in the journal Science.
Yeah, so they seem to be on speed, maybe, or something?
Well, it says the drugged salmon might have migrated differently because of an increased willingness to take risks. Now, if a person is on anxiety medication and a side effect is an increased tendency to take risk, that's a little scary.
Yeah.
All right. And so Olivia Simmons, who's a salmon ecologist at the Norwegian Institute for Nature Research, says it's interesting to see how one problem impacts how they deal with another problem. These bolder fish could just be getting faster because they're less inhibited.
Yeah, they're not scared of anything.
Yeah, but going faster is not necessarily a good thing for the salmon.
Don't feed this to the sharks.
Oh my God. And it says a co-author of the study, Marcus Michelangeli, says it's important to realize that any change to the natural behavior and ecology of a species is expected to have broader negative consequences, both for that species and the surrounding wildlife community.
Yeah, fish exposed to this chemical may be more risk-prone and solitary.
Solitary. I mean, these are fish that school, you don't want just sort of beelining it through the dams rather than waiting around for their salmon friends.
They're not bunching up, that's for sure. Researchers also took their study into the lab to better understand the impact of the drug on the salmon, and the fish displayed other signs of solitary behavior.
Yeah, clobazam appeared to change the way the fish interacted with each other, making them less likely to school in groups, even when a predatory northern pike swam nearby. And that independence could make them more vulnerable to being eaten.
Still, there's hope on the horizon for the world's fish.
Oh, one word. Yeah, really? I'd like to see it.
Well, wastewater treatment options are getting better at reducing pharmaceutical contamination, and researchers are also working on making drugs that degrade more quickly.
Yeah, imagine.
Well, I don't know if that'll help.
Well, It might if it degrades immediately in the wastewater while it's being treated
before the fish get to it.
before the fish get to
Yeah,
it.
maybe so.
Yeah, yeah.
By designing drugs that break down more rapidly or become less harmful after use, we can significantly mitigate the environmental impact of pharmaceutical pollution in the future, says the author.
Well, and I'm not holding my breath for anything that costs money.
Unless they're making money.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad state of affairs. And speaking of which, we got the last article here.
Yeah, we thought we'd put this in because the dire wolves are back.
Well,
They're not
we talked a few shows back about the woolly mice. That there's a company that is working on Colossal Bioscience is deemed itself as the de-extinction company, and they've decided to try and bring back some of these extinct
cute little things.
species. And well, those are the wolves.
Yeah.
So
Romulus.
so they're
Remus.
working. So they started with. They hadn't mentioned anything. They were talking about bringing back woolly mammoths and
Tasmanian devils or
Yeah.
Tasmanian tigers.
Yeah. But they hadn't said anything about dire wolves. But it turns out that they were working on dire wolves. So they
Yeah.
had 3 pups born of gray wolves.
Yeah, 2 males and 1 female. The female was the last one, I guess.
Yeah. So
So
there's let's see. There were 2 pups named Romulus and Remus. They were snow white wolf pups, and they're, as they say here, they're dire wolves ish.
Yeah.
And the Colossal Biosciences announced the birth of Romulus and Remus and a 3rd dire wolf, a female named Khaleesi.
In reference to the Game of Thrones characters, which we haven't watched.
No. According to the firm's statement, the dire wolf has just become the world's first successfully de-extincted animal. And given the pup's genetic similarity to gray wolves, however, some scientists are challenging this.
Well, they took certain parts of the genome and slapped them all together. You guys can read the article. It's not really a dire wolf. They do have some of the traits of the dire wolf. I don't think we'll really know until they grow up a little bit more.
Well, even so, they weren't born into the world where dire wolves flourished.
Right.
They're not eating the diet that dire wolves ate. They're not roaming free.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things. But it does say dire wolves were larger and had bigger teeth than the modern gray wolf, even though they share quite a bit of the DNA, everything else. And so, again, just to remind you, Colossal Biosciences was trying to resurrect extinct woolly mammoths, dodo birds, and Tasmanian tigers. And
yeah, I'm not really that interested. I think we should be.
Well, go ahead.
I think we should be more interested in saving the animals that are here now.
How about the people?
And the people too. So we have a lot of things that we can focus on. It's still interesting stuff, and it's amazing what human beings can do.
But again, it comes back to that same question: just because you can do it, should you do it?
We all watch the movies, right?
Yeah, right. But survival of the fittest, or changes in the environment that led to extinction. I mean, what? And every time it's the whole. What are the law? I say the biggest law in the entire world is the law of unintended consequences and unforeseen consequences.
Yeah.
And you don't know what it'll do.
Yeah.
And right now we got enough trouble with the farmers and the wolves.
Yeah, it says here that what we have mostly is a gray wolf that kind of looks like a dire wolf. Mm-hmm. All these creatures, I don't think they are actually dire wolves.
A lot of people are saying,
other scientists point out that the pups might not even know how to act like dire wolves.
Mm-hmm. They're unlikely to exhibit behaviors typical of wild dire wolves because they're being raised in captivity with no pack structure, and wolves are pack animals. We know that.
And of course, what happens if these things can reproduce and then they go out in the wild?
Well, and how do you stop it? We had that huge escape of the farm salmon a couple of months ago.
Yeah, we talked about that.
And we talked about it. The impact on the wild salmon population could be substantial, and they couldn't stop it. What was it? Quite a few tens of thousands of fish escaped.
Well, if we can't stop all the chemicals and carcinogens in our food and our packaging, then I don't hold much hope on stopping anything with dire wolves either. So who
I'm
knows?
not sure we're starting anything either,
Yeah, I
so
don't
for
know.
that matter. So.
Anyway, that's our show. Hope you find it interesting. We'll be back whenever, and hope you have a great week or month.
And be well and be safe.
Bye bye now.